Bedlam is finally back. Can a sellout ever be a bad thing? And could UConn join the Big 12 in what is the most critical season in Big 12 conference history?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we are partially brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC. It's a brand new mobile game that is completely free. It has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. Use a promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy with the newest game today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of football to some degree, but of course, UConn. Thanks to our buddy Drake Toll. He's been on this for quite some time, but evidently they just met up again in Dallas, and the conversations are continuing to heat up. This is definitely seemingly going to happen, right? Because Brett Yormark has not been bashful by any stretch of the imagination in wanting to bring some teams more towards the East Coast. Of course, we would all appreciate that being the ACC front, partially because UConn was being discussed as a basketball-only school. The reason I'm more than okay with this move, especially now that we're hearing about more and more coming out, is it's not just for basketball. It will be for all sports. There is a caveat. Football doesn't meet the requirements to be Big 12 ready, so they would have to, kind of stage themselves up to get football in, but they could have a UConn football in the Big 12 as well by 2031. That is the conversation being had, and if it's continuing to get this far with as much as Brett Yormark has been pushing for this, I think it's safe to assume it's all but a done deal. And the fact that they're coming in all sports, I think is a big deal. Does it change a bunch for the Big 12? Does it make the Big 12 instantaneously better in anything other than basketball? No, maybe not right away. But UConn, clearly they're doing something to prove they're willing to spend whatever is necessary and do whatever is necessary to get themselves on this playing field. And they have enough in basketball to make it already a Final Four laden conference. This is a good move for the conference in what is, in my opinion, the biggest year of all time. Now, Fridays sometimes a little bit tricky, but we're going to try to break the algorithm today by helping build a little bit more of a Big 12 fan base. As you all well know, I have Oklahoma State and KU in the Big 12 title game. As you all well know, I think the Cowboys are more than positioned to be at Arlington at the end of the season. But realistically, what I kind of wanted to get into is because Mike Gundy has said some things that have got the media department up in arms, as has Paul Feinbaum, which we greatly appreciate because body bags for Paul Feinbaum are not always easy to come by. But he tailor-made this one for us. Make sure you go check out yesterday's episode if you haven't seen it yet. But you're also hearing Neil Brown kind of throw some shade at ESPN and talk about how tired he is of his team getting disrespected, and guys like Garrett Green and one of their top linemen that is projected to be potentially a first-round pick, neither of those gentlemen end up on the top 100. Now, we have discussed how the top 100 obviously was SEC loaded. Makes sense. ESPN, SEC, there's a love fest going on there, just like there's a love fest currently between Paul Feinbaum and the OU Sooners. There's a love fest with UConn and Brett Yormark. That's why this thing seemingly is almost a done deal. There is no love lost, seemingly, with the coaches, with some of the Neil Brown comments. And obviously, Mike Gundy has been very transparent and opening things so honestly that it's got him in some trouble somehow. Go figure that one. But Sonny Dykes has kind of talked about the new age of college football and where the landscape is and how TCU is getting underestimated after just, having an opportunity to play for a national title just 2 years ago. Most of those dudes, to some degree, are still on the roster, at least the younger cats. So the disrespect is not just contained to Oklahoma State, right? You've seen the original over and under come out of 7.5, then it finally did get bumped up to 8.5, but you're continuously hearing people throw shade at Alan Bowman and talk about how without Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State has absolutely nothing. If you have some of those people in your camp or in your neighborhood, make sure that you bet them money. This is the season of capitalization. This is the season of capitalization for all of us. And guys, I think a lot of you are with me here. Now that OU and Texas are out of the league, it's safe to say that we don't care who wins. Realistically, I mean, we do care. We're fans. We're Oklahoma State fans. And we're like 1-9 in Big 12 title games. So, of course, we want that trophy to come home to us. But at the end of the day, it's about making a run at the CFP to change the perception of everybody. Is Neil Brown likely accurate that there's a couple players, if not at least one player on the West Virginia Ball Club that deserves to be in the top 100? Abso-freaking-lutely. And case in point, if you're going to put Garrett Green in there, and we discussed this a little bit, if you're going to put Avery Johnson in there, you have to put Garrett Green in there. Because Garrett Green is essentially, to some degree, the same player as Avery Johnson. The difference is he's already proven it. Not only has he proven it, he proved to be able to provide a 9-win season. And I'm pretty sure they returned like 80-some-odd% of the roster. They're being disrespected. It is very true. Kansas State is not being disrespected. They're being overly respected, but that's a Chris Kleiman effect. That's, to some degree, even a Bill Snyder effect. The fact that K-State has been instrumental in shifting the landscape of the Big 12 and having a consistent force since Chris Kleiman's been there, even back to when Bill Snyder was there. K-State was typically always a solid force. So is there national disrespect? Yes. Because ESPN Top 100 did have like 4 or 5 Arizona players in there. So it's safe to say that I think nationally everybody's disrespecting Arizona, because as much as ESPN can put 4 or 5 Arizona dudes in the top 100 players in the country, they still are not talking about Arizona. Arizona does return like 80-some-odd% of their roster. Now, the turnover on the staff, it's literally, I think, every single coach. And you're also talking about the nutritionists and the weight department. All of that had to shift and it had to change. So Arizona, talent, yes. Coaching staff, is it going to take them time to figure it out? Most likely. So they get all the respect from ESPN Top 100, yet they're not getting respect from ESPN themselves. They have a bunch of players in the top 100, yet they're not projected to win the league by most anybody. Definitely not ESPN. This is the season of capitalization for Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. For all of you out there that are other Big 12 schools, this is my plea to you. I don't care who wins. At the end of the day, we just need a team from the Big 12 to make a run at the CFP. TCU, guys, what they did to Michigan was huge for the conference. And the timing of that was absolutely perfect. We just got the contract done with Brett Yormark, right, and getting the different ESPN deal done. That we maybe could have waited a little bit longer and rode that TCU wave and got more money, but Brett Yormark didn't do that. TCU beating Michigan was good for the conference. TCU getting their skull drug around the turf by Georgia, not a good look. So instead of everybody talking about how strong the Big 12 is and how the Big 12 should be in a legitimate conversation with catching the Big 10, being better than Michigan, being better than some of the top teams in that league, instead it was, oh, look at the poor little old Big 12. So just like the perception of the Big 12 for a long time because of OU was they can get right to the Final Four style of games. They can get to the BCS style of games. They just can't win them. And TCU, unfortunately, was another cog in that machine that gave it validity. We need to prevent that from happening. This is a season of capitalization for the entire conference. So if it's Kansas State, Utah, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, Texas Tech, I don't give a hoot who, and I don't think you do either. Somebody just needs to go all the way and not get dominated. See, if TCU would have lost the national title game by 7 points, then we're not having this conversation. Then we're also likely not having this episode. So it is what it is. I don't care who does it. Somebody in the conference needs to grab this thing by the horns and prove that the Big 12 is not only here to stay, but the Big 12 should be viewed in the same light as the Big 10. Do we have the Ohio State, Michigan, the quote-unquote blue bloods? No, we do not. Do we have the parity that's going to make every single week the most exciting in college football? Likely, absolutely yes. We have to capitalize on this season. So is Coach Gundy right in being open, transparent, and honest? Absolutely. I think it's good for Oklahoma State. I think it's good for the Big 12. Who cares about the nonsense of anybody else saying the QR codes is a bad idea? Don't worry about all that. That's ridiculous. But Neil Brown is right. There's disrespect happening. Sonny Dykes is right. There's disrespect happening. Whenever you look at this conference at the end of the season, If we have multiple representatives in the CFP, let's say we get 2 teams in and both teams win their first round game and both teams make a good account for themselves in the second round game, that is going to improve the perception of the Big 12, which will allow us to get more respect from ESPN and everybody else. Because here's another layer here. We all know this is true. They're not going to publicly put it out, but ESPN does have a vested interest in making sure that the SEC outperforms the Big Ten in a lot of areas. ESPN does have a vested interest in making sure that they're at the forefront of any of the future TV negotiation style of deals. Therefore, they're going to have to propagate their products up that can give them the most amount of money. I think that's partially why Paul Feinbaum decided to throw his knee pads on most recently to help out the conference, as opposed to just kind of keeping it real for everybody out there. I don't think OU's not talented. I think OU's a good 8-4 style ball club. Just getting to 9 wins seems difficult unless you're Paul Feinbaum. That's okay. And lastly, before we shift gears here, sellouts. Obviously, Oklahoma State has this new trend of selling out football games way in advance, even for FCS opponents. But my question here is, can a sellout ever be a bad thing, right? You let me know down in the comment section. For all of you on YouTube, I'm going to say that it can be a bad thing, right? And case in point is this season. There's so many people out there that are diehard everyday fans of Oklahoma State. And if you are out there also diehard everyday fans of this show, I want to say I'm greatly appreciative to you, but that's also I wanted to address this. I cannot lose sight of the fact that I started this because I couldn't afford all of the different publications at one point in time. So I couldn't pay for the 247 and the OSU Max and the Pistols Firing and the Pokes Report and the O State Illustrated and whatever else it was, the Tulsa World, Daily Oklahoman. The list goes on and on and on. So if you weren't able to pay for those sites, it seemingly felt like you never knew anything. And then even if you did pay for the sites, there was a good possibility that you were going to get some smoke and some mirrors mixed in with some awesome sauce. That's the same thing with sellouts. There's a large portion of every fan base out there that has normal everyday fans that may have to pick whether they go to a game or two. Or they may have to save up for an entire year to get to a couple games. Guys, I didn't know this as a kid, but my dad saved up for like 2.5 years, almost 3 years to get the 97 season tickets. That was back at Lewis Field. That was back when 7 wins was a massive ordeal. And so I try to draw back to that. If you have donor bills, not dollar bills, but donor bills, you're going to know some stuff. Point blank, period. It just is what it is. You have access to more information than everybody else. So sellouts, they're amazing. They're phenomenal. But I want us all to not lose sight of the fact that if you bought tickets or people that have bought tickets, try to do your best to make sure that you don't throw those around willy-nilly just for an exorbitant amount of profit. Not that I'm saying Oklahoma State fans are out there for profiting, but if you are in a position at some point in time, make sure you kick it down and let people experience what is to be the greatest season likely of all time in Oklahoma State history. Everybody that can help the everyday listener, the everyday viewer that can't go to every game or every other game or even more than 1 or 2 games a year, please keep them in mind, because those are the fans that sometimes get alienated. And that's why I do this show, is for those fans, because I was that fan for the longest of times. So sellouts are phenomenal. But they do hurt some of the common fan. And this only got brought up, right, because, people have been discussing, what if we end up in Arlington and we go to the CFP, right? I can't do both. Even people that have the ability to go to like 9-10 games, even they sometimes don't have the ability to do both. So embrace this season, soak it in, and have the memories of a lifetime. But also, let's try to pack the daggone thing with orange at every single turn. So if you're somebody out there that can pass it along, let the people out there who are struggling every minute of every day experience what this Oklahoma State season is going to be like. And if you don't have extra tickets or anything to that nature, at least try to make the tailgating scene as big time as it's always been and as welcoming as it's always been, but on a bigger degree even. Because I do think this is the season that all of us will remember for the rest of our lives. We need to bring everybody that we can along for this ride. So make sure that you share this too, because sharing is caring. We do have to talk about another Bedlam. We feel good about it. Maybe OU obviously doesn't feel great about it, but this is a perfect time to keep this train rolling and keep this thing going. Just like it's a perfect time for you to get in on the hottest game in the land. Oklahoma State fans, I want to take this moment to give you this heads up on the brand new mobile game. I think you're going to fall in love with it. It's amazing. It's a simulation that you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Could you imagine actually being the head coach of a team? That would be pretty legitimate, especially Oklahoma State, right? But from recruiting players, hiring staff, coaches, overseeing training camps, handling the scholarships, you control all of the critical details of building your own program. It's in your hands. How will you handle the pressure? At the end of the day, it's completely free, which is the best thing in the game. Ultimate College Football HC also has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. You can go play on the go, and you can basically orchestrate your team however you need. We have a special offer for you today. Our Locked On Oklahoma State fans, use the code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a boost or a bonus to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk, as it'll turn your team into a very hot commodity from the beginning of your season. Download the game today. Just visit the ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in your app stores. Again, that is ultimate-cfp.com. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. Colin Carmichael has a coaching legacy, and he's off to a hot start. Cowgirl soccer was able to take down the SEC Sooners yesterday, and this is a 3-0 start to the season, and this is after going up to Lincoln, Nebraska, knocking off the number 6 ranked Lady Cornhuskers. Then we get to beat a talented ORU ball club, followed up by this Bedlam W. So, as SEC country exists for OU, you were 0-1 in Bedlam. Congratulations. It feels so good. The Bedlam series, it's not even close, right? Of course, OU fans will point out the only numerical data that they put out in Norman, which is 89, 19, and 7. But outside of that, and almost every other sport, they dominate, except for gymnastics. They're very good at it, and we don't have gymnastics. That's another reason that they have all of those national titles. It's much flack as they want to give Oklahoma State country for having 34 national titles in wrestling. Ironically enough, they put up ridiculous national titles numbers in gymnastics, but it's okay. It's okay to live in the past. We get it. At Oklahoma State, we're trying to live in the now, because this is the biggest season. After absolutely dominating the Bedlam series last season on your way out the door, it is nice to begin the new Bedlam series with you in the SEC the right way and in solid orange fashion, because, of course, it's Orange on Friday. Get your orange on, feel good, get fired up. I was going to save this one for tomorrow, but again, we're trying to expand the Big 12 footprint here, and we're going to break the Friday algorithmic issues some point in time. It should be today. It's today that day. Now, Bedlam is also back in basketball, thankfully. They came to that agreement. We are going to square off this upcoming season in Oklahoma City. That's good for the state, the towns, Oklahoma State people, even to some degree OU people. And I will say another layer of this that I do find slightly intriguing is, with them now being in the SEC and us not playing in football for seemingly the next 8 years or so, is Bedlam going to kind of kick up another notch in some of these other sports like basketball, like soccer, track and field. Even Oklahoma State continues to make massive strides in that department. It's an area that we just continue to beat down the door. It's only a matter of time before we're up there in the big-time top 5 national party. But as Bedlam pertains, you tell me, for all of you out in the YouTube country, down in the comment section, do you think that there is going to be some more natural animosity that kind of builds up because of this, because of the last Bedlam game in Stillwater, actually the last 2 Bedlam football games in Stillwater? That was the carryover to the SEC, followed by the absolute Bedlam beatdown in the Bedlam series as they left the SEC. So they left the Big 12 battered, beaten, bruised, and then they began the new Bedlam rivalry as an SEC opponent with a loss to the Cowgirls, rocking the solid orange. I'm excited for the basketball, right? And this is another thing for Steve Lutz and the basketball team. Protect the Galgaraba. Yes, of course. Absolutely. That is number one. But if we could extend Galgaraba to Oklahoma City for that one, that would be a very good way for you to kind of, get in good, real quick, fast, and in a hurry with Oklahoma State country fan base. Even though I think a lot of us are pretty happy with where we sit and where we stand. At the same time, it could get better. You never know, right? Speaking of things getting better, ladies and gentlemen, Game Time Tickets is the best in the game, and you're going to want to get your hands on the tickets to watch the Cowboys this season. Make sure that you get squared away today because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events, regardless of what they are, even easier. Game Time Picks, it filters out all the crazy stuff to show you only the incredible deals on seats so you don't have to sift through and waste extra time searching through the thousands of tickets. They're going to help do that for you. The Game Picks, it makes it easier for you to save more on sports, music, comedy, and theater. The all-in pricing. It's a feature that shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at the checkout. When you're mentioning in-all pricing, this is the best in the game. You have to turn on this feature to make it applicable, just like you have to look at the panoramic view to make the seat applicable for your best experience. You need to take the guesswork out of buying any kind of tickets with Game Time, and you need to do it today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, make sure you create that account. Redeem that code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. What is it? It is Game Time. All righty. So this is obviously an additional show because I was going to save this for tomorrow, but I was too excited. I had to put this out. I had to rock the orange. Orange on Friday is a little bit different than orange on Saturday. But if you did catch the show that we put out earlier in regards to wrestling, I greatly appreciate it. One thing that we didn't quite get to was I did want to talk about the lineups in general and kind of how they were likely to shake out. I'm no wrestling expert, right? Nor am I savant, but I did some reading on different sites, including, Flow Wrestling, and I looked at some of the Penn State stuff, some of the top 25 stuff, some of the top 10 recruiting classes over the last few years, and was able to kind of piece this thing together, right? I could be wrong. Let me know down in the comment section for all my YouTube folks out there where I am wrong. Okay, for the class that we brought in, Coulter Burton, Idaho, 3-time state champ, 2-time finalist at Fargo. He's wrestled at 132 and 139, so he should be able to bump up to 141 or 149 fairly seamlessly. You got Jake Hamity. Sorry, I was corrected yesterday. Jake Hamity. It's Dean Hamity's brother who made the state title in Illinois and finished runner-up. J.J. McComas, a top 10 recruit in the country out of Stillwater High School. He's going to be somebody that is worth the watch this season, even though it's very early on in his career. Ramon Salazar, 2 state titles in Colorado, finished his senior season with a 27-3 record at the 132-pound weight division. Colin Young, both parents are Iowa Hawkeyes, so this is a big one. He's gone 127-18 in his high school career, and he won the 165-pound Iowa State championship. And then Cody Merrill. Cody Merrill is one of the biggest recruits in all of the land. Him picking Oklahoma State over teams like Iowa and Penn State and Minnesota. The list goes on and on and on. Absolutely massive get. But as it pertains to this season, how I see it shaking out. 125 pounds, got to be Troy Spradley. He went 8-2 at Minnesota, and then he comes to Oklahoma State last season. That's a very solid year, going 23-8. Ended up being the number 6 seed in nationals, but was slightly underwhelming there. Sam Smith is also here at this weight. So even though it does feel like a Troy Spradley situation, Sam Smith cannot be underestimated as a number 2 because he's got that John Smith blood coursing through his veins. 133 probably should be Reese Whitcraft, but the impressive youngster Cale Hughes, who was also a top 10 recruit, and the freshman J.J. McComas will be able to battle it out of there. It's a bunch of top 10 dudes battling it out for one spot, so that weight class will be very interesting to watch. 141. Likely, I think, should be taking Jameson. He did have a 9-4 record in duels last season, and the ability he showed was definitely there. Well, now you have Jake Hamady. He could be a spark here alongside another freshman and Coulter Burton at that 145, 141 range. 149 should be Carter Young. Now that Jordan Williams is officially gone after a 17-9 record and a number 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament, going number 2. He was 1 win away from qualifying as an All-American, but this is Carter Young's time. And this is the perfect time for Carter Young to kind of take this and run with it. Another Stillwater High guy that originally was going to go to Northwestern, switched it up, came to Oklahoma State. Now this is going to be his season. 157 pounds. We got Teague Travis coming back as a redshirt junior. He brings in a 23-8 record off of last season, and he won like 12, 15 dual matches. You know, they're towards the end in impressive fashion. He was 4th in the Big 12 title contention, and he finishes the number 16 seed in nationals. Got to have a big year. This is the weight that David Taylor loves. Obviously, 165 pounds, a.k.a. it is Murderer's Row. Likely to be Cam Amin, right? Coming over from Michigan, having a very, very solid career, All-American level style of guy. But you've got Caleb Fish at the same weight. There's talk, I think, that Caleb Fish could, in fact, redshirt or potentially bump down. If Caleb Fish isn't going to bump down, then you have to have the conversation about Dean Hamady. But it appears as though Dean Hamady is going to move up to a 174. So is Dean Hamady going to end up being the 174 guy? Because Braden Thompson at times likely still needs some development. I believe that will be the objective here, to get Dean Hamady a little bit more muscle mass and him slide in seamlessly here to 174, 184. The dude who's now replaced Dayton Fix as the top dog in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Dustin Plott coming off a 31-4 record in NCAA and Big 12 runner-up opportunities this season are going to be wild for him. 197 would have been the most loaded weight class with Christian Carroll, but Christian Carroll decided that he did not want to compete at 197. He's a heavyweight. He didn't want to cut weight, didn't want to go down, didn't want to mess with it. His feathers got ruffled by the addition of Wyatt Hendrickson. It is what it is. So who are we going to have that ends up being here? Well, we got Luke Serber back. Luke Serber could do something very cutting edge to some degree at this weight. But at the same time, guys, this is going to be tailor-made for somebody like a Cody Merrill. Right? I know he's a freshman, but he's coming in with all of the accolades, all of the state titles, all of the Greco-Roman championships and the overseas experience. Cody Merrill should be able to slide in here pretty seamlessly right away and be the guy if it's not going to be Luke Serber. But at the same time, you got Kyle Haas, right? He's a dude that can compete at this weight as well, so that's going to be fun to watch. Heavyweight, Wyatt Hendrickson. Kind of stinks for Connor Doucette, who returns after like 5 years, having overabundance of experience in that Cowboy wrestling room. Hayden Simpson did very well unattached last season, providing even more depth so that the wrestle off for number 2 is going to be a big deal. And Luke Serber has wrestled at heavyweight when necessary. It is no longer necessary, thankfully. So you tell me in the comment section, should Luke Serber take that 197 spot, or do you think Cody Merrill, Kyle Haas could potentially come in and steal it right away? Let me know down in the comments section. Of course, I wanted to get to that. And before we skedaddle off of here, one of the other reasons I didn't want to save the show for tomorrow, even though algorithmically it may have been the best of ideas, is tomorrow we have the first DLHS space of the season, Overreaction Saturday, to kick off our Saturdays together. So make sure that you join us tomorrow as we talk live with pretty much all of the top Twitter Oklahoma State accounts that you can find out there. So the guys who make the funny stuff, the guys who make the fun stuff, the dumb stuff, the off-the-wall stuff, the breaking news to some degree stuff, we're going to be able to hammer that away tomorrow on the X Space, and you'll get your opportunity to ask any questions or have any comments. So until then, I reckon that's all we're going to have for this beautiful thing right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. So like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's get this thing growing. Let's get it to 2K real quick, fast, and in a hurry. All righty, y'all. You know the drill. Hit stars. Leave a review. Do what you do. Later, my taters.